My name is Brittany, and I never thought I'd be the one to distance myself from my family. But life has a way of revealing people's true colors, especially during moments that should be filled with joy. I met Paul 4 years ago at a tech conference where I was working as an event coordinator. He was nothing like the guys I usually dated, quiet, thoughtful, and incredibly smart. I had always been the outgoing social type, just like the rest of my family. But something about his calm presence pulled me in. Paul worked as a senior programmer at a big tech company, and I loved the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his projects. I fell for him fast. You two are complete opposites. My younger sister Cheryl kept reminding me when we started dating. He barely says a word at family dinners. She was 6 years younger than me, but always acted like she had relationships all figured out. My parents, Ronald and Mary, weren't much better. Honey, are you sure about him? Mom would ask every time Paul left the room. He seems so distant. I tried explaining countless times. Paul wasn't distant, just introverted. He preferred meaningful conversations over small talk, small gatherings over loud parties. But my family never tried to understand. To them, his quiet nature felt like an insult. Despite their disapproval, Paul and I got married a year ago. We had a small, intimate wedding, exactly how we wanted it. My family came, but they spent most of the time making passive-aggressive comments about how different everything was from a traditional family wedding. I don't understand why they can't just accept you for who you are, I told Paul one evening after another tense family dinner. He just gave me that gentle smile of his and shrugged. Not everyone has to understand me, Brittany. As long as you do. That was what I loved about him, his ability to rise above the drama. To not let other people's opinions shake him. But things were about to get worse. It started with a phone call from my mom last weekend. Brittany, dear, we're having a family dinner next Monday, she said sweetly. Just you, though. We know Paul doesn't enjoy these gatherings. I could feel my anger rising. What do you mean, just me? I asked. Mom hesitated. Well, we're having some relatives over, and you know how Paul is with crowds. We thought it would be better if... If what, Mom? I interrupted. If my husband stayed home while I pretended I was single at family events. Sorry, Mom, but that's not how marriage works. I'm not coming without my husband. Before she could say another word, I hung up. My hands were shaking with frustration. Later, when I told Paul about it, he just laughed. Everything changed a few days later, when Cheryl called me one sunny morning. She sounded so excited I could practically hear her bouncing up and down. Brittany, oh my God. You won't believe it. William proposed last night, she squealed. My heart jumped with happiness. Despite our differences, I loved my sister, and I knew how much she cared about William. They had been together for over 3 years, and he seemed like a great guy. A high school teacher who shared Cheryl's outgoing personality and love for big social events. That's amazing, Cheryl. I'm so happy for you, I said, already grabbing my car keys. Are you at Mom and Dad's? Yes. Come over right now. We're already starting to plan everything. 30 minutes later, I walked into my parents' living room. Cheryl ran over and hugged me tight, her engagement ring catching the light. Mom and Dad were beaming, and William stood nearby, looking proud but a little overwhelmed. Let me see the ring, I said. Cheryl held out her hand, showing off a simple but beautiful diamond ring. For the next hour, we flipped through wedding magazines and talked about dates. Everything felt perfect until Mom's face turned serious. The only problem is, we're a bit tight on money right now, she said, looking uncomfortable. With Dad's medical bills and everything. I saw Cheryl's face fall, even though she tried to hide it. Before I even thought about it, the words came out of my mouth. I'll give you $220,000 for the wedding. Cheryl screamed and threw her arms around me, nearly knocking me over. Oh my God, Brittany. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Even Mom and Dad looked impressed. That's incredibly generous of you, honey, Mom said, sounding sincere for once. That evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. I told Paul everything while we ate dinner in our kitchen. His response completely surprised me. I have an idea, he said, setting down his fork. What if we also buy them tickets to the Sydney for their honeymoon as a surprise gift at the wedding? I stared at him, shocked. The Sydney? But that would cost around $40,000. He nodded. I know. I'll use my personal savings. I've been thinking about what you said about trying to build a better relationship with your family. Maybe this could help them see me differently. Tears filled my eyes. This was the man my family thought was cold and distant, offering to use his own savings to give my sister her dream honeymoon. Are you sure? I asked, still overwhelmed by his kindness. He smiled and pulled me into a hug. Absolutely. But let's keep it a secret until the wedding. It'll be more special that way. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe this would finally help my family see the real Paul. Not the quiet, antisocial person they thought he was, but the kind, generous man I had fallen in love with. The months leading up to Cheryl's wedding passed in a blur of planning and excitement. Every weekend, there was something new to decide, and Cheryl wanted my opinion on everything. It touched me that she valued my thoughts so much. What do you think of this venue? She asked one Monday, showing me pictures of a beautiful, converted warehouse. It's smaller than the country club Mom suggested, but I think it has more character. I love it, I said honestly. Plus, it'll probably cost half as much. Cheryl nodded, chewing her lip. That's what I was thinking. William, and I want to keep things simple, no more than 80 guests. We're trying to be smart about money. I admired her approach. Unlike some brides who wanted the most expensive of everything, Cheryl was being practical. We spent hours comparing flower arrangements, tasting different menus, and visiting dress shops, always keeping an eye on the budget. You don't think it's too plain? She asked, twirling in a sleek, simple wedding dress that cost way less than Mom had expected her to spend. It's perfect, I assured her. Sometimes, less is more. Every time we made another decision or checked another thing off the list, I couldn't help but smile, thinking about the surprise waiting for them. Paul would ask how the planning was going every now and then. And every time I mentioned Cheryl's little comments about wanting to travel someday, I'd catch him grinning. I can't wait to see their faces, Paul said one evening. Did you look at the resort photos I sent you? That overwater bungalow is going to blow their minds. Hearing how excited he was made me fall in love with him all over again. My quiet, introverted husband was genuinely happy about giving my sister and her fiancé the honeymoon of their dreams. But as the wedding got closer, something started bothering me. 3 weeks before the big day, I finally realized what it was. We still hadn't received our invitation. At first, I tried to ignore it. Cheryl had been so busy with wedding plans, and she had included me in every detail. It was probably just a mistake. Still, something didn't feel right. Paul and I already had our outfits ready. We had taken time off work. We had been helping with the planning from the start. Yet, there was no actual invitation for us. After a sleepless night worrying about it, I decided to stop by my parents' house after work to ask Cheryl directly. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw my parents' cars and Cheryl's old Honda. Perfect. Everyone was home. I grabbed my purse and walked up to the front door, still trying to convince myself that I was overthinking. After all, I had helped plan this wedding. There had to be a simple explanation. I stepped into the living room, keeping my voice casual. Hey, Cheryl, I wanted to ask you something. Paul and I haven't received our invitation yet. I'm sure it just got lost in the mail or something. Cheryl shifted uncomfortably on the couch and glanced at our parents before answering. Oh, actually, I wanted to give it to you in person. She reached into her purse and pulled out a cream-colored envelope, handing it to me with a smile that felt a little forced. Here you go. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. The invitation was beautiful, elegant script on thick paper. Exactly the style we had picked out together. But as I read it, my stomach dropped. There was only one name on it. Mine. I looked up at Cheryl, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Cheryl, why isn't Paul's name on this? She straightened up, and I saw her expression change. The hesitation was gone, replaced by a stubborn look I knew well from when we were kids, when she was about to do something she knew was wrong. "Well," she said, glancing at our parents again, "we decided to keep the guest list really small. You know, only the absolute closest people." It felt like a slap. "Closest people? Paul is my husband. He's your brother-in-law." Cheryl rolled her eyes. "Come on, Brittany. We all know he's not really family. He never even tries to be part of anything." I turned to my parents, hoping, praying, they would say something to stop this madness. But Mom just nodded in agreement, and Dad wouldn't even look at me. "We support Cheryl's decision," Mom said firmly. "Your husband doesn't even enjoy these events. He always looks so miserable at family gatherings." "That's not true," I protested. But Dad cut me off. "Be reasonable, Brittany. He'll just sit there with that sad look on his face, making everyone uncomfortable." Then, as if this was the most logical reason of all, he added, "Besides, this way Cheryl can save some money on the catering." "Save money?" I repeated, stunned. "You're excluding my husband to save money on a plate of food?" Cheryl crossed her arms. "It's my wedding, Brittany. I get to decide who comes, and I don't want him there ruining the mood. He can stay home and code, or whatever it is he does." I stood there, staring at the four people I had known my whole life, struggling to understand how we had gotten here. How could they talk about my husband like he was a random stranger instead of family? The worst part? It was obvious they had planned this conversation. Their arguments felt rehearsed. They had already agreed among themselves that this was perfectly reasonable. Meanwhile, my husband, who they wanted to exclude, had been quietly spending his own savings to give them the honeymoon of their dreams. I took a deep breath, my voice dangerously calm. "Let me get this straight. You want to leave my husband out of the wedding to save money? A wedding that I gave you $20,000 for? Money I gave freely, no conditions, no expectations?" Cheryl's smug expression faltered for a second, but she quickly regained her confidence. "Well, that's different. You're my sister and Paul is just—" I cut her off. "But you know what's really ironic about all this? Paul has spent the last 4 months planning a surprise for you. He was going to gift you and William an all-expenses-paid honeymoon to the Sydney." The room fell silent. $40,000. I continued. "Luxury resort. Overwater bungalow. First-class flights. Everything." Mom gasped, covering her mouth. Dad's jaw dropped. Cheryl's face went through a series of emotions: disbelief, shock, and then something that made my stomach turn. Calculation. "The Sydney?" Cheryl's voice suddenly turned sweet and apologetic. "Oh my God, Brittany, I was just kidding about the invitation. Of course, Paul is invited. Here, let me fix the card right now." She grabbed her purse and pulled out a pen. I took a step back, shocked by Cheryl's sudden change in attitude. "Don't bother," I said. "The trip is canceled." "What?" "No." Cheryl jumped up. "Come on, I was just joking. Don't be so sensitive." Mom quickly stepped in, her voice suddenly sweet. "Honey, your sister was just stressed about wedding planning. You know how brides can be. Of course, we want Paul there." Dad nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. He's family." I looked at them, people I had loved my whole life, and felt nothing but disgust. Just 10 minutes ago, they had all agreed to exclude my husband. But the moment they heard about the expensive gift, they were scrambling to take it all back. I met Dad's eyes. "You're right, Paul is family. And that's exactly why I'm not going to let you treat him this way." I turned and walked toward the door, ignoring their protests. The drive home was a blur. When I walked through the door, Paul took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. We sat on the couch, and I told him everything. The missing invitation, their excuses, their sudden change of heart when they found out about the Sydney trip. Paul listened quietly, his face calm as always, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. He had spent months planning the surprise, excited to give Cheryl and William their dream honeymoon. And they couldn't even bother to invite him to the wedding. "What do you want to do?" he asked after a moment. "Cancel the trip," I said without hesitation. "And I'm not going to the wedding. I can't sit there and celebrate with people who treat you like this." "Are you sure? They're your family. I shook my head. You're my family, and I won't let anyone treat my family this way. Paul nodded, opened his laptop, and within minutes, the Sydney reservation was cancelled. The refund appeared in his account immediately. As I watched the transaction complete, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. That evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First came the calls. Cheryl's name flashed on my screen every few minutes, alternating with Mom and Dad's. I silenced them all. Then, the messages started flooding in. Cheryl, please don't do this to me. The Sydney has always been my dream. Mom, sweetheart, let's talk about this rationally. Don't make any hasty decisions about the trip. Dad, think about your sister's happiness. This is her special day. As I scrolled through their messages, one thing became crystal clear. Not one of them mentioned Paul. Not one of them apologized for trying to exclude him. Not one of them cared about how hurtful their actions had been. Every single message was about one thing, the canceled honeymoon. Then Cheryl's next text came in. You can't cancel the Sydney trip. We already told William's parents about it. A cold laugh escaped my lips. Of course, they had told people. They probably started bragging about their luxury honeymoon the moment I walked out of the house. The trip is already canceled, I typed back. The money has been refunded. Don't contact me again. Then, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I blocked my sister's number. Then, for good measure, I blocked my parents too. Paul and I spent the rest of the evening watching movies on the couch, trying to act like everything was normal. But the next morning, our peaceful Monday was shattered by loud banging on our front door. Before we could even respond, the door burst open. My parents had used their emergency key, the one I had given them years ago for actual emergencies. Cheryl stormed in first, followed by Mom and Dad. They didn't bother with hellos or explanations. How dare you cancel our honeymoon? Cheryl screamed, her face red with anger. You have to reinstate it right now. Calm down, Paul said, standing up from the couch. You can't just barge into our house like this. They ignored him completely, acting as if he wasn't even there. Do you know how embarrassing this is? Mom demanded. We already told everyone about the Sydney. Fix this right now, Dad ordered, pointing his finger at me. Call whoever you need to call and get the trip reinstated. I stood my ground, my heart racing, but my voice steady. I'm not giving expensive gifts to people who don't respect my husband or me. The trip is canceled. And that's final. Cheryl's face twisted with rage. You know what? Don't bother coming to my wedding at all. You're not invited anymore. I don't want you there. Cheryl. Paul started, but she cut him off. Shut up. This is all your fault. Ever since Brittany married you, she's changed. She used to be fun. She used to be normal. I took a deep breath, my voice surprisingly calm. You want to talk about money? Fine. Let's talk about the $20,000 I gave you for this wedding. Cheryl's face turned pale. Mom and Dad stopped their angry muttering. That's right, I continued. $20,000 that I could legally demand back right now, since you've uninvited me from the wedding. I took a step closer, looking Cheryl in the eye. That's how gifts work, Cheryl. If the event they were meant for no longer applies, the gift can be taken back. Cheryl's mouth opened, but no words came out. You wouldn't, she finally stammered, her confidence completely gone. I wouldn't, I agreed. You can keep the money. Consider it your wedding gift from your horrible, unfun sister, who didn't want to come to your wedding anyway. But the Sydney, Cheryl's voice cracked. The Sydney was never yours, I said firmly. It was a surprise gift from the man you didn't even bother to invite. The man you and the rest of the family have treated like an outsider for years. I looked at them, my voice steady. Well, congratulations. You've finally succeeded in pushing us both away completely. Cheryl's face crumpled, and she burst into tears. But I've dreamed about the Sydney my whole life. It's not fair. Mom and Dad immediately wrapped their arms around her, just like they always had when we were kids, whenever she didn't get her way. They shot me angry looks as they guided her toward the door. I just watched them leave, comforting my crying sister like she was the victim. And I felt nothing. No guilt. No sadness. Just exhaustion. The door clicked shut, and suddenly, the house was quiet again. Paul stepped behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. I leaned back against him, drawing strength from his steady presence. "I'm so tired," I whispered. Tired of their arrogance. Tired of them only thinking about themselves. Tired of them treating us like this. "I know," he said softly, kissing the top of my head. I turned to face him, a small smile forming despite everything. "You know what? Let's do something with that refunded money. Something for us." "What do you have in mind?" "We've been talking about getting a new car. $40,000 would make a great down payment." Paul grinned. I might have already been looking at some options. "Want to go car shopping?" 3 weeks later, we were driving home in our brand new hybrid SUV. It was beautiful, practical, but most importantly, it was ours. A symbol of our life together. Our priorities. Our future. As I ran my hand over the smooth dashboard, I knew we had made the right choice. The day of Cheryl's wedding came and went. I kept myself busy on purpose. Paul and I took our new car for a long drive along the coast, had lunch at a quiet seaside restaurant, and did our best not to think about what was happening back in town. But that evening, after we got home, I couldn't help myself. I opened Instagram and went to Cheryl's page. The wedding photos were already up, professionally taken, carefully filtered, perfectly posed. But as I scrolled through the photos, I noticed something. Cheryl's smile never quite reached her eyes. Even in the candid shots, she looked distracted, uneasy, like someone trying too hard to prove they were having the time of their life. 3 days later, my Aunt Jennifer called. She had always been my favorite relative, Mom's younger sister, but completely different from her in all the ways that mattered. "I need to tell you something about the wedding," she said, her voice serious. "What is it?" "Your mother gave a speech," she sighed. One of her classic passive-aggressive masterpieces. She went on about how families should stick together, how some people get too caught up in their own lives and forget their responsibilities, and then she said something about greed destroying family bonds. I felt my chest tighten. "Let me guess," I said. Everyone knew exactly who she was talking about. "Oh, honey," Aunt Jennifer said with a dry laugh. It was about as subtle as a brick through a window. The whole room felt awkward. Even some of William's family were whispering, asking what was going on. I took a deep breath and told her everything. The uninvited husband. The canceled Sydney trip. Cheryl's tantrum. All of it. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then Aunt Jennifer spoke, her voice steady. "You did the right thing." Tears stung my eyes. "I've watched for years as they treated Paul like an outsider," she continued. "It's not right, and it's not your fault. Your mother and Cheryl, they've always been like this. They always have to have things their way." I swallowed hard. "Thank you, Aunt Jennifer. You don't know how much that means to me." After we hung up, I sat in the backyard for a long time, watching the sunset. Paul found me there, carrying 2 glasses of wine. "A penny for your thoughts?" he asked, settling into the chair beside me. "I was just thinking about family," I said, taking a sip. "About how sometimes the hardest decisions are the right ones." "Do you think you'll ever make up with them?" I sighed. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe someday, if they truly understand what they did wrong and make real changes. But I'm not holding my breath. And I'm not going to chase after them." Paul reached over and took my hand. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." I squeezed his hand, thinking about how far we'd come. My family might have seen Paul as the outsider, the one who didn't fit in. But they were wrong. He was the one who had shown true family values, loyalty, respect, understanding. As we sat there, watching the sky turn from orange to purple to deep blue, I felt a deep sense of peace. Our new car sat in the driveway, a symbol of our future together. Our home, now quieter without my family's constant drama, felt more peaceful than ever. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly content.